And we're here back with the lifestyle segment and importantly discussing crucial issues that are of importance to you. And today we're all about discussing coping after a divorce or bouncing back after a divorce or coping with divorce. Whichever way you want to look at it or whichever way you want to term it, it's important that we have this candid conversation. We have a psychologist on board. Her name is Faith Kishanga Osiro, who joins us to expound more on the same. Not necessarily out of experience, but, on a psychological perspective, professional perspective. And anyway, even if it's out of that, so that's how we get to learn, because experiences, as they would say, are the best when it comes to teaching. So experience is the best teacher, is what I'm trying to say in a nutshell. Faith, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
All right.
Good to be here.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to
yes, one would think that, okay, probably this is not my subject because I'm not divorced. I am not intending to get divorced. But reality is that deep down, when you're marching into marriage, there's always that fear of the unknown, because you do not know what tomorrow holds.
True.
You do not know whether you're going to have the same affection for your partner for the rest of time. You do not know whether they're going to disappoint you.
True.
And you always want to question yourself, call yourself for a meeting, as they would say, and say, in the event that it happens, what happens? And when it dawns and it comes for some, it is a very hard time to go through. And questions are, how do I cope? How do I get myself back? How do I learn to love myself back? So hence the reason why we termed it necessary to have this conversation.
Absolutely.
So where do we start from?
Okay. Thank you so much for having me here. And you are correct. When we begin this journey of marriage, and especially with the trends that we are seeing, divorce is real and it's happening.
Yeah.
So we do get sometimes that anxiety, and so some people never even get to walk down the aisle just for fear that it might not go the way they had thought.
Yeah.
But what I'm liking is that we can no longer bury our head in the sand.
Right.
It's happening and it's a lot. And these are people, they are, even if it's not us, they are our sisters, they are our friends, they are our children. So we need to discuss. So for so long, I must say that it's been there's been a lot of stigma around divorce.
Right.
But whether we address it or not, it's happening. So I think we need to see then how can these people. So first of all, less stigma. I don't think anyone ever starts off thinking this is where I want to, maybe they're there, but that's, maybe we're talking about, I don't know, people in the US wanting a green card, but that's very different. A lot of people want to get married and for it to stay in the long haul. So first of all, to just know no one brings this upon themselves. So for the caregivers, the people who are around them, the support system, it's just to know that nobody wishes this on themselves. Yeah. And as much as you're sure, I am sure about myself, or you're sure about yourself, a marriage takes two people.
Right.
I can be very sure and very committed, but also to know that person, maybe your friend or your sister, may have wanted it and may have worked, but it takes two, and the other person was not interested. So that's a good place to begin. Right. Less stigma. Let's start from there.
Okay, before we even get to that level of, now it has happened and you have to cope with it and know what next. Equally, you find that there are people who are still, in the setup of marriage, so to speak, but genuinely they are divorced because of the tough times that they're going through, because, they just want to paint a picture of, yes, marriage to the society, but really the marital activities are not going on as expected within. Could this be informed by the stigma that revolves around that? What really informs the fact that, they can still hold in there, in as much as it's toxic, it is not working for them, and the two of them know very well that really there's no marriage here.
Yeah. Yes, so that's a big part of it. There is shame. People suffer shame. Yeah. And this is whether I tell you shame on you or not, there's just the inbuilt, because it's a culture, and in our culture, we have these values and we uphold marriage. Yeah. So there's the shame. There's that shame you don't want to go through. So you'd rather just put up this show than have to deal with the consequences of, my marriage is not working. Yeah. And because especially maybe when it comes to women, you'll be like, so what did you not do? How come you couldn't keep a marriage? So that's a huge one. But also, I mean, there are many other things, maybe financial security, sometimes we stay in it for the children. So there are many reasons why people would still stay in it. Stigma is one of them. Yes.
All right. So do you suppose then that equally this factor of not knowing how you would cope with it would get most of the people saying that, well, better the devil you know than the angel you don't. I better stick here because, well, I am used to this, as opposed to going out there that I do not know how the waters sort of feel like or how deep they are.
That is so true. It's an unknown, just as you're calling it, so much uncertainty. Because we're also saying your identity is changing. I am Mrs. Osiro. I have to go back to not being Mrs. Osiro. What does that mean? I can't go back. I remember when I was getting married and our pastor told us, you never go back to being single.
Okay. Never ever.
No. Once you're married, so you don't really go back to who you used to be. You've been married and you've gone through this process. Actually, sometimes they say divorce is not the end of a relationship. It's just that relationship changes in form.
Okay.
Yes, you'll never not have been married. So, whether you and you go to court say, it was an annulment, but that's the thing. So, yes, so not knowing how to cope. So there's that identity. You have to say, okay, Christmas, we used to do this. What does that mean now? What does that mean for me on Christmas Day? So many things, traditions, those have to change. So I have children, we have children, and what does my children won't see their dad every day, or I won't see my children every day. So a lot of not having that information on how to cope, and it's because we've not talked about it. I think it's very sad that we've not talked about it. We've buried our heads in the sand. It's a taboo, so we won't even address how someone can move forward from it. So I think the society, we've also just let ourselves down and our loved ones down.
All right. Okay, now let's overlook all the stigma that comes along with that. Well, much as maybe we cannot run away from that. And I'll pick the subject of the day, coping up with divorce, before we even get to, bouncing back. Also at this time, it is that period that you're going through. It is the first month, it's the second month. There are processes to eat. Some people have gone through the official process, that is church weddings, weddings, of course, the Muslim weddings, whichever way. And some of them was a come we stay. And you still cannot overlook the fact that, it was just a come we stay. So, okay, lots of years have been spent with the two of you together and all that. So first, what is the first point, or first of all, being able to cope with this?
Okay. So first of all, I don't think we can simplify it like that and say, this is the magic pill. Once you start with, they say divorce is so traumatizing that it's sometimes equated to the death of a spouse.
Okay.
Yeah. So, sometimes you can say, no, at least, yours is alive. No. It's very traumatizing. And in fact, in this one, there is the aspect of rejection, because at least when not at least, wrong word, but when your spouse dies, it's a natural thing. But divorce is everything, the loss plus the rejection that comes with it. So there's no magic pill. But some of the things are not even so much what you will do, but understanding the process. So for example, being okay, but knowing it's okay not to be okay. So you're saying, you alluded earlier to the fact that we want to be seen in a certain way. So it's okay to fall apart. Divorce is huge. It will do a number. You have emotions such as what I'm saying. There's the feeling of rejection. There's overwhelming sadness. There's loss. There's loss of your dreams and hopes together. There's the loss of identity, as I talked about earlier. There's the loss of a partner, and a lot of times, even when we are conflicting in marriage, that person is a significant part of your life. They're your friend. So so there are many losses that you're going through. So first of all, just knowing it's okay to not be okay. I think secondly, I'd say just brace yourself. It's a difficult journey, but there's the other side, and especially if you have the right support, there's the other side. So knowing that this won't last forever. it's a dark side, but there's the other side. So just knowing that it's a process that you're going through, and those are some of the things. But also just surrounding yourself with support system. You do not do this alone.
You do not do this alone. Most of the people will want to be, somewhere, hide themselves, time away.
Ironically.
And it sounds fulfilling for many who I've spoken to. They say, well, I need time alone and it's working.
Well, if it's working, it's working. But I wouldn't recommend that. Maybe say, okay, there are the moments I'm alone. But when you're alone, when you're going through something, when you're alone, you're just ruminating. You're just going over how could I not see this, how could I, it can get into a spiral. So sometimes it's just good to be around people. Well, we're not saying everyone, but at least a close circle or a therapist, but at least know that there are people out there that you can rely on.
Is it healthy to have this person that you are running away from around you? Because you find that sometimes, it's not worked well. And as I would say, women, will leave this place for 10 years before they officially decide that this is it. So if she leaves officially, then it means she started living long time ago. Yep. So eventually she decides that's it. But maybe the man is there trying to solve the situation and all that. But, the decision is already made with this other party. Like you said, you would be wanting to commit, but the other party does not want to.
True.
Is it healthy to have these people around you? Or maybe you should take that direction where you're normally told, switch them off, block them if need be, let them not be close to you.
So the person that you're...
Yes, the person that you're running away, you're divorcing for that matter. So, it's like, you want to have people around. You're going through a tough time.
Yes.
But again, the person that is there is this person that you're trying to run away from.
Okay. So that becomes very difficult and confusing because if then you've decided you're going through a divorce, then there has to be some boundaries. Yeah. Otherwise, what you'll just do, you'll just keep mark timing in the same position. Yeah. At some point, if that's what you've decided, if that's what you see, it's okay. There needs to be some separation in terms of, so that, okay, are we separating? Yes, we are. So what does that mean? But if we are saying we're separating, but we're here together, so...
But the emotions also sometimes would get you confused in the sense that, you are like, okay, well, genuinely this is what I want. But then again, the warmth, you just don't want to have this warmth out of your life like that.
So, and that's what I'm saying. So what will you do? You'll have that someone there. So at what point then do you severe that? Because eventually you've decided. So what it's just lengthens the process. That's what I'm saying. Then if you've decided, you have to just, cut the cord.
All right. Yeah. So what's the difference between, make me understand.
Yes.
They say it's important to have a break. After a divorce, give yourself that break.
Yes.
But equally, it's important to go through this with people. So how then do you give yourself a break? What exactly is this that we call a break? Yet at the same time, we recommend that it's important to have people around you so you can go through this with them, or they can help you go through this.
So hopefully we're saying a break from dating. Okay. Like you're not jumping from this into another, because for sure that might usually, not for sure, but usually that does not go well. But we're saying that surround yourself with a support system. Support system is, your close friends, and that's the other thing. I mean, it's divorce, and sometimes that's the other thing about divorce. I will tell you today, yes, I'm feeling this is what I wanted, this is it, but then the following day I'm just boiling and I'm like, no, I'm not sure. Yeah. So that's why also a close-knit circle helps, so that, the people you don't have to explain what's going on. Yes. So then that becomes useful, because as you're talking to people, you're processing as well. You're processing what's going on, because it's the healing is not a straight line. Yeah. Today you're like, yes, in fact, this marriage was not working for me, and you're out there and you're doing your thing. Yeah. Then when you're out there, you see in the movies, you see a couple holding each other,
and you miss that.
So you spiral back. So it's not a straight line. So you do need a support system. But as far as dating or toxic people, there are some people who are good when we're happy, and and maybe they're friends but not that neat circle, who will make you second guess, make you feel bad about yourself. Those ones we can tell them once we are more advanced.
Pretty much hard to know that, and sometimes you go to this close circle and you cry to them and you give them all the reasons as to why you've decided to take that direction, and it makes so much sense to them. In most cases mommies, and the mommy will tell you, okay, you cannot go through this again, just say it's over and done. And then years later, some people start regretting and probably pointing fingers at the very same people who were there for them at that, and say, if it weren't for you people, maybe, just maybe, I wouldn't have done this. Maybe I would have thought otherwise. So in such a scenario, how do you avoid a scenario where later on you'll start blaming people or blaming yourself also for taking that bold move? Okay.
So as far as blaming people, let me start with that. So you see, and when you are the support system of this person, it's not in your place to convince them why they need to leave or why they need to stay. Okay. Listen, first of all, just listen. That's the most this person needs. But also ask them questions. Let that be coming from them. Are you sure this is what you want? Okay, so you've decided to divorce. What does it mean financially? But not, you need to leave. We've seen it's not working. It can come back, the way you're saying. Yeah. Now, for yourself, it almost always happens. When that time when you want a divorce, it makes so much sense. In fact, especially if you're the one who's, signing. But most people, a big number, down the line, start realizing it was not, the way I was saying, let's not simplify it. Right. It's not as simple. It just didn't mean being away from this person I quarrel with all the time. It means cutting so many things that you had not imagined. The level of pain, the level of, so usually it happens, and that's why it's important to seek therapy. Right. Sometimes it's not because you regret, probably you don't even want the relationship back, but it's what is happening at that time. Now you feel lonely, or maybe your finances are not working out. So a therapist will help you navigate, okay, so what is it that is making you feel like this now? If it's truly the relationship, then that's it. But usually you'll find it's maybe now the children and maybe the children now are blaming you. So those things. But we can work on those things that are presenting themselves at that time. Yes.
All right, so how best do you take care of yourself emotionally, physically? Because then you get drained. And really, sometimes you look at yourself in the mirror, most of them say that, and you no longer see yourself as a beautiful person. And that again, you see inferiority complex setting in. So how best do you get yourself to that emotional balance and equally physical wellness?
One of the most important things for the emotional is forgiveness. And it's forgiving yourself and forgiving the other person. Giving the other person, by the time a divorce is happening, yes, there's a person who's saying, I want to, these are the papers, they call the petitioner. However, it means by the time we are getting there was a breakdown in the relationship. Usually, very few people will live a very happy, fulfilling marriage, even though people say they are going on to another relationship. Usually, there's a breakdown. So it's important for me, even if I'm not the one who's instigating the divorce, to take responsibility of my part in the breakdown, not in the divorce, but in the breakdown of the marriage. And forgive myself, because I'll say, okay, maybe if I had been more, I don't know, maybe cook better meals or whatever it is, or not work so hard and be home, maybe the divorce would not have happened. So so forgive yourself, but also, which is usually very difficult, forgive the other person. And we say this forgiveness is not even so much about the other person or for the other person, but for yourself. What you're doing is you're letting go of the pain. So that's important. Number one, forgiveness for the emotional healing. And then we talk about self-care. Self-care is now, and there's some things when you start looking, like, when I was married, actually, I couldn't just do this and that. Now I can, I can travel, I can do this. Of course, it's difficult. Maybe this person needs to travel with all the time. But it's time to just, you grow, and you go for the first one. Of course, probably it's terrible. But you're like, you go back home and say, I did it. I didn't even think I can do a trip by myself, things like that. So self-care. And then what I started with, and also part of self-care is saying, today, I am not okay. I am not okay. And maybe this is, 6 months. It wouldn't make sense to anyone else, but to you, today is that day and I'm not feeling okay. So to just be okay with not being okay, and just because it doesn't make sense to other people, probably it's even 2 years down the line, just because it doesn't make sense to other people, it's still okay, because you're the one who's wearing those shoes. And then something else, self-awareness is very important, just to know how much of what I'm feeling is related to what's going on, and what kind of a person, how do I handle stress, how do I handle, how is my resilience levels, so there's a lot of self-awareness. And also you realize when you're in a marriage, a lot of us get the identity and almost like the personality of the other person, and we lose ourselves. So it's self-awareness, like, wait, actually this is the music that I like. I used to listen to this just because he used to like it, or she likes it. So going through the process of self-awareness and self-discovery. And a lot of people will tell you when they're coming out of the other side, it's like, oh, I am this, I am that, these are my strengths. I realized I also had these weaknesses. So that's also part of the healing journey. That's
amazing. I am just thinking of the numerous women who had to love football, because of their spouses, and now you have to drop Manchester. Anyway, that aside, struggles, arguments with the spouses as you try to let go, especially culminating from the fact that they're children, culminating from the fact that you had investments together, they will always crop up. Just how best can you avoid this and solve some of this issue amicably? And is it possible to solve them one time, or some will have to take processes?
I think for sure it will take time, but I think the initial, especially when you're going through the divorce, that is a very fundamental time. And just because also the emotions are very raw. Some of the arguments we'll be having maybe about the custody, well, not really about the custody. I think you're okay having the kids this weekend, and like that. But I am feeling you did this to me, you broke. So I will turn that around to something else and probably just deny you that custody. But it's not about the custody. So it's important to, again, get that support if it's therapy, just for you to be able to deal with your emotions and to know, again, self-awareness, when this is an issue of really the custody or how we are sharing property, or it's my bitterness and the anger that is driving this. So that becomes very key of that being reflective. That outburst, was it actually because he's mistreating me, or because I'm still feeling, how could you do this? So that becomes important in that process. But it will take time. And then just knowing that even if I am the party who feels wronged, that I'll have to work. I think that's the hard part, because I'm just like, you're the one who wanted the divorce, you make this divorce work. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. That even though I feel like I'm the one who was wronged or left, I still need to work hard. I have to keep my emotions in check. I have to be rational, make decisions rationally more than emotionally. So just knowing that, even both parties will have to work hard. And also that it's not easy, even for the person leaving. It's never easy. In fact, they're also second guessing. I think it's just not easy to walk out of a marriage. So they're also second guessing themselves. They're feeling shame. They're feeling guilt. So emotions are quite right. So that's what we need to deal with, especially at the beginning of the relationship.
All right.
And of the divorce.
Of the divorce.
Yes.
So it's not always about the two of you. There could be children and family, extended family, your mom, her mom, his mom, and all that. So as you walk yourself through this, how then do you speak and talk and get these other people to equally understand that, Mama, I know you wanted me to be married. You pride in that. You move around telling your friends, reminding them, they keep talking about how beautiful your wedding was. And here you are, I'm coming back home. And
That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Also, just because of our society, we don't get married. Me and Mr. Osiro, it's my family and Mr. Osiro's family, and
all together, and friends equally, friends of their family.
And by the way, that's also another complication of divorce, because even friends, it's like we have to split loyalty. People have to, so it's very difficult. So let's say children. For children, so first of all, it's important to tell them what's happening. I feel like at least nowadays we are living in an in an era where we consider children's emotions.
Yeah.
I think back in our days, you'll just be shifted from this house to the other and no explanation. But as you're telling them, it needs to be age appropriate. Yeah. So because what you'll tell the 3-year-old and the 8-year-old different from the 15-year-old, so age appropriate. But it's important to tell them rather than they're just wondering, they're being yanked from here, they're being taken. So just age appropriate, it's important to tell them. Number 2, to check in with them. How are you feeling today? And maybe they're like, I'm so sad. How could dad do this? Or mom, why didn't you try harder? And it's okay to tell them, I'm also feeling sad, I'm feeling sad, but we can get through this together. So check in with them. And then for children, again, just for them to know maybe what to expect in the future. What does this mean for them? Because what is difficult for the children is to feel like, okay, so what's going to happen? That uncertainty. Our parents, how as a child your parent is like the most solid person. It's, and you're like, okay, so this structure is not there anymore. So it's important for them to still have that security, to be assured that this is not about you. Dad is not, or mom is not leaving you, children. It's me. It's, to differentiate that it's a marriage. It's not the relationship with the children. So for children, that's important. And then for family, for the rest of the family and parents, it's important to, we say, individuating, just to know that, at the end of the day, that I am the one who's going through this. Because sometimes what happens is I'm the one who's going through it, but I'm having to console other people. That becomes very difficult. I'm the one who's having to manage my mom, I'm the one who's having to manage, everyone else, and I'm the one who's going through this. So just the individuation of, just making them understand that, it's not what I would have wanted, far from it, but this is what is happening. And it's okay to say, I don't even, because people will ask, hey, so what are the plans? You didn't plan for it. You did say, in the year 2020, December, I'll divorce, and then now this is the plan. Very rarely. So you're like, I'm also figuring it as I go along.
All right, there's so much to discuss about this, but time is not on our side. But importantly, bouncing back. And, like you say, you don't have it all figured out, but eventually you have to bounce back. If at all you have to get through that, and, 2 years down the line, make the next move, you have to figure it out. So, lessons. Introducing the next person, and having to clearly shut everything that happened on this other side, on that other side, not having memories that will keep haunting you when you look at this person that you have right now and you start thinking of the other and all that. Just how then do you bounce back?
So by bouncing back, you mean getting into another relationship?
Well, generally, not even necessarily, because there are people who decide, okay, I don't think I need to get into another relationship, but you pick lessons.
Okay.
You say that now, moving forward, how do I make myself better and not have my past haunt me? Yeah.
Okay. So those 2 years then will be very, very important. How the next 20 go. It's what you do during these 2 years that will determine whether you will then stay there wallowing and looking at every man or every woman as the person who probably left. So it's important to deal with the emotions. Again, deal with the emotions. And as I said, forgiveness. Forgive yourself, forgive the other person. Initially, it will be very mechanical. But for me, I tell my clients, you know what, every time you're feeling that anger you're feeling, just say out loud. It will sound very mechanical, but like, I forgive you so and so. Very mechanical, but it's doing something to your brain. Eventually it will make sense and you will find yourself, you're forgiving that person. So before you move on, it's that. And then number 2, what you're saying, the lessons. The truth is, for any relationship to break down, it takes 2. There's the one who almost always looks like the offender. But okay. Yes, probably I was doing something and enabling that behavior. Maybe whatever it was. Maybe let me say he was violent and he would abuse me. Probably I was enabling that bad behavior, and probably I would say when he would do it. And then when he comes back, because it's usually like a cycle, then he comes back and, he doesn't even apologize, and we just pick, and
we keep going.
And we keep going.
So we'll do it again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I realized, the first time I told my friend, now I even stopped saying, because then, so there are things I did that contributed to that. Yes. Or sometimes, and I know this is interesting, sometimes I will find myself being very passive aggressive, which is not solving the issue. So I'm being very passive aggressive in this person who is being violent, but I'm, so I do that, and then he becomes violent, and so the cycle just keeps going. Well, and let me not say that there's anything anyone does to deserve to be meted violence on, but there are things I can do to provoke. Sometimes there are things, I'm not saying then it justifies to be abused, but if I know if this person is this way, sometimes it's just better not to, just to find if that's what we're saying, if it's living, rather than we're here antagonizing each other. Yeah. So just to know what was my part. Probably, we can be career women and we can get carried away. Right. Personally, I know like that happens when I have this project. I can get really buried in it and forget everything in my home. Yes. And I know I'm guilty, and I know we are many of us. Yeah. So I would, these are things I usually have to keep in check and remind myself. So it's important to that, so that then you don't go into another relationship and replay the same script, different cast.
All right. Yes. Well, thank you so much. And I'm sure we've picked so much in regards to the same. Like I said, there's always so much to discuss about this, but then again, time would not allow us. But yes, we've picked key lessons. Faith, Gishanga, Eswero, thank you so much for the great insights, and we look forward to have you some other time as you expound more on issues that affect family. But importantly, we want to cross over to the Milimani locus, where Governor Muthomi Njuki is being, of course, that is appearing in court in regards to graft cases leveled against him yesterday, having been grilled the EACC for the better of an entire day. And of course, we had our reporter, Lauren Nanok, following up on the same, bringing on board updates as of yesterday. And yes, assuring to us that the governor will be appearing in court. So I'll be leaving you with live pictures of the same, even as the country continues to battle with matters of graft. Most of the governors being implicated, or most of the governors being, of course, alleged to have conducted graft in their respective counties. The aspect of involving family is one thing that is also playing out. So we have the live pictures now from the Milimani Law Courts, and we take you through the same as we follow up on this case closely to get to it and to know what it is that deliberations will have from the courts. Most of the people have argued that corruption has been shrinked at the level of the courts, because normally we do not get answers once these individuals get to court. But reality is that yes, it's a whole different according to them. They argue that it's because there's never, presentation of watertight evidence that would be good enough to implicate these individuals. So we follow up on this closely, and we get to update you on the same. Let's cross over. Yes, as you can see, the vehicle that the governor is in, and any minute or any moment from now he will be presented in courts, and we get the deliberations on the same according to the proceedings and according to what it is that the judges will declare of the same. Remember that yesterday he appeared before the EACC, and the entire day we had our reporter Lauren Nanok following up on the same, just to see whether there will be any deliberations on the same. So I'll leave you with those pictures, and you can be sure that we'll be giving you the updates of the same as and when they get to hit the editorial desk. My name is Linda Lela. It was great having you again. Let's keep it TV47. Thank you so much once again. Faith, I've treated you to some bit of news, right? All right. Thank you.